Hi, I'm Rhonda Tomasi, wife of James Tomasi, the author of What Time Tuesday. For 12 years, I watched my husband suffer with a debilitating disease, trigeminal neuralgia. In the medical journals, it's known as the suicide disease. I watched in horror and listened as my husband told me that he was going to take his own life after 12 long years and 2 years of non-ending pain. Fortunately, I had someone tell me about upper cervical care just in time. I contacted and located an upper cervical doctor, and after 11 days of care, my husband was pain-free. Now, this was exciting to us. Of course, we thought this doctor could only help trigeminal neuralgia patients. We had no idea that it could help other conditions. After 2 months of him being pain-free and going back into business and regaining a normalcy in our life, he said, "Oh, Rhonda, you need to go for your conditions." And I said, "Hey, James, it won't help. I've been under the best medical care. I've worked for medical doctors. I've had the latest meds. I know my options. It's surgery and uterus removal. They can't, what could they do for me?" And so for another 2 months, I lived with my conditions. Now let me describe my conditions to you. At the age of 26, I was broadsided by a car, and within 2 years, I began to have severe menstrual problems. I would flow for 10 days out of every month. I became very anemic. I thought after about 12 years of going through that I was going to die at the end of every 30-day period. And I would call my prayer partner, she'd pray with me, but I could feel my life ebbing away. It was like, you know, you lose so much blood and eventually you just can't make it anymore. Let me give you an example. I had to sit on white plastic bags on our furniture, in the car, anywhere we went, and carry an extra set of clothes because I never knew when I would have the big blood clots and just flood all over everything. Can't tell you how many seat cushions in our house that I washed and cleaned up, or car seats, before I learned to carry the plastic bags with me. I'd walk into a convenience store all messed up and have to go in and change and clean myself. It was quite not only embarrassing, but it was very debilitating. I also had developed a chronic cough because I was in the medical offices, was looked at as possible TB. So I had a TB exam twice, came back negative. I had all the latest drugs. Nothing took care of the cough. I coughed if I ate, if I drank, if I talked, if I walked. Didn't matter. I coughed. And then seasonally, twice a year, I would get so sick with the allergies that I would go to bed for 3 days in the spring and the fall. And that was just my routine. I expected it. I knew it was going to be there. And I just kept pushing through. Toward the end of James's crisis, I developed a third thing, and that was arthritic pain in the joints of these 2 fingers. I'd watch my grandmothers both die with severe arthritis, and their knuckles were enlarged and their hands were twisted so much they could no longer work, crochet, drive a car. So I knew what was beginning there, and the pain in the joints was just very uncomfortable. So eventually James convinced me I should go see the upper cervical doctor, even though I had no faith as a spouse that they could do anything to help me. But was I surprised? Within 2 hours of the specific x-rays, the specific analysis that upper cervical doctors do, and the specific correction of the C1 and C2, the swelling in my joints and the joint pain totally disappeared. It's never come back. It took 2 weeks for me to hold my correction long enough, and that chronic cough that I'd had the TB test for and all the drugs, it went away. And now that's my trigger point. If I lose my correction, then I start coughing. And I know, oops, I'm out. I need to go back and see my upper cervical doctor. It took 2 years for my menstrual problems to straighten up. Part of that was, now I realize, when I'd had the B scans or ultrasounds run years before, my uterus was full of fibroid tumors. So it took 2 years for my body to stay under care, run a straight line, and those fibroid tumors to be reabsorbed into my system so that I didn't have the menstrual problems anymore. I had normal cycles for over 3 years. And then one day I said, okay, I want to go into menopause, James. We were traveling by then, doing what we do now, working and touting upper cervical to anyone on the street or anywhere we can. And I went into menopause, and I could tell you, I do not have night sweats. I do not have ups and downs in my hormones. I do not have any problems. It was just cut and dried. My hormones changed, and upper cervical care has kept me straight, so I don't have the other problems. So James and I, neither one, have been on medications, drugs, had operations, had any health problems since 1997. Now, how many people in their 50s and 60s do you know that aren't on pharmaceuticals? Well, you do now. You know 2 of us. Because of upper cervical care, we don't need it anymore. We've found our insurance policy for health, and that's keeping the C1 and the C2 aligned. The specific work that the upper cervical doctors do has made all the difference in our health and those around us, and multitudes of people that we have listened to and heard their stories, just like I'm sharing mine with you, over the last 11 years. So I want to encourage you, trust your upper cervical doctor. Stay under care long enough to hold and run a straight line so your body can heal itself, because it will.